Before we get started on today's episode, big ups to the members of the Patreon: Nick Chavez, Abel, Ben Kotzian, Christopher Velasquez, Derek Platees, Devin Rondon, Jordan Riley, Mike Wozniak, Nick Crummich, and Thomas Robinson. Thank you all for your contributions to the Patreon. To support the show, patreon.com/veterans minimum. And today, I got my guy in the building for the first time in Vegas. Alan Stirk in the building.
Yeah. I feel like I'm doing Randy Orton pose right now.
There you go.
It's WrestleMania weekend, by the way.
Bro, look, we got the jacket on. We're ready.
One of the greatest things I've ever seen.
We're locked in.
Revel in the greatness.
Yes, we are here in the studio. I always tell you this, and the audience knows also. I don't know if I would be in Vegas doing the show if it wasn't for you. When the initial split of VM went down and I took over the show, you were the first person that I wanted to do content with because you had come on the show a bunch of times beforehand, and I knew how dedicated you are to this stuff and how much you care about this stuff. And I always want to give you your flowers, always want to show you love and tell you thank you because, man, when you create content, especially when you create content on your own, bro, it could be very difficult sometimes to be fired up to always go out there and do the content on your own. And I'm the host, I'm the director, the producer, the guest booker. Having someone like you that's always going to be there on time. You hit your days, which is my main thing when I'm creating content. It's like, yo, you might not get the episode at 8 in the morning, but you're going to get it on a Monday. You're going to get it on a Thursday. And you always showed up when I needed you to. And there's been many times, bro, where we would record the content and like I wouldn't be exactly enthusiastic about recording, but then you'd show up and there's something weird that happens, man. It's only two things that this happens with: jiu-jitsu and when I press record on the podcast, I lock in and I don't think about anything else. So
that's powerful. Thank you.
With all the fuckery that goes on in this world and in our lives, we're not going to agree with everything that happens, but it's made us who we are. And I did want to take this time before we started recording and talking some funkiness to just show you some love.
Yeah, it means a lot, given that we've known each other for over a decade.
WrestleMania was when we first became friends.
See, man, what will you say about wrestling?
Everything is wrestling. Number one, everything is wrestling.
We just always had that natural connection because we're very passionate about sports. We have a lot of the similarities, and we're both very outspoken and we're candid. And I think that was always just a natural connection. And that's why I always loved recording with you back in 2015, 16, and then 17, 18. But then when we came together for 19, it was just like, okay, NFL season, let's just go all in. And yeah, you hit me up. And it was also a blessing in disguise because I remember I could talk about this now. Like I was actually wrestling again. I was going for a WWE job. I was going for a content producer role, and went to the last round. They didn't select me due to I wasn't that social media savvy, which is understandable, and that gave me the green light to work with you. So in another way, WWE saying no, let me work with you, and that's how it came together. And now look at this. We went from basements to now being in studio, and this is just powerful for me. Now speaking from my perspective, it's just week in and week out. Yes, times maybe we were lacking enthusiasm, but we always talk about football. We always what we most love, but we wouldn't do it under the most greatest circumstances. We was times where we were putting up our own equipment. We were like having to shift things around in traffic, driving over an hour, just stuck waiting. But now just seeing everything come to light, seeing the branding, seeing the colors, seeing you fully deserving of it for all the years of sacrifice. That's what makes this moment so special. And I had to make this happen at some point. I was like, with you being here at some point in the first year. And ironically, I'm coming the day before I turn 30.
Let's go.
I'm joining a 30 club with you.
Yes, sir.
So
big 30.
Yeah. So yeah, I like it. It's so heartwarming, and I just got that rush because like you, I'm just as passionate about this and that natural chemistry and that consistency and that loyalty. And now we're here, and we're dropping a lot of content here.
Yeah.
And I look forward. The audience is going to be able to enjoy a bunch of shows we're doing, but this is the one.
For sure, man. And this is also your first time in Vegas, right?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Vegas person. I don't really gamble too much. It's just not my style.
Which is wild because he's friends with me. He's friends with me, and he don't like to gamble. That's crazy. I respect it. I do judge you.
I mean, it
I
is
do
what it
judge
is.
you because yeah, I'm down with the degens. If you degen, man,
I
you are one
respect
of
the
mine.
hustle, and
That's
I like learning about it because it's everywhere in sport. If you watch sports, it's connected, so you have to
yeah.
become familiarized with it. I don't need to be involved with it. I like the brackets, I like fantasy football, but that's I'm content with that.
And I mean, bro, you also rub shoulders with one of the best doing it when it comes to sports betting. I don't
Absolutely
pat
true.
myself on the back too much, but we kind of know what we're talking about here. But I do like people that gamble. It's like it's weird, man. You sort of have a bond with them without even you can know nothing about that person. But if you're at the sports book and you're sitting down and they react to something good that happens for your bet, you realize that, oh shit, they're on the same side as me. And then you'll be like, yo, we needed that one, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're buying each other drinks, your
Fist
friends.
pumps every 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're like, yo, we getting dinner later, bro. Let's cash these tickets together.
Steaks.
And I always show love to the DJs, and especially now, I think my number one favorite receiver in the NFL is probably Calvin Ridley, a former Atlanta Falcon.
I'm a huge fan of Calvin Ridley, the
because
football player.
because hey man, listen, if you degen and sometimes you got to risk it all, and unfortunately he got back, but he's back. He's back, and the Jaguars are going to be back. And it brings me to this, dude. I want to talk about this because in the past we've spoken about the first real metric that the sports books put out from a betting perspective that is a little bit more, I don't want to say predictable, but it's a better projection of what your team is going to be is the win totals. Win totals dropped late last week from a bunch of different sports books, and I have a couple here, and I want to just run by them. The initial reaction is the number too high, is the number too low, and there are a couple of things that I want to give people advice on when it comes to win totals. Win totals in the NFL, it's a very lame thing to bet on. The public doesn't really bet on win totals because it's either a over or an under, and it's usually minus 110, minus 130. You're not gonna get the plus 700s on a win total. You're not gonna get plus 2,500 on a win total, which is what you could get on divisions, MVPs, player props, awards. That is more public friendly, where win totals tend to be more of the professional bettors bet because it's an A or B side. And what you'll see here is a lot of these bets are also with the hook, meaning that half game. So you're not really going to get a push. They kind of eliminated those a couple of years ago. So I'm going to rattle off a couple. I'll do the NFC first. And when we finish the NFC, just tell me which one you're like, that's a weird line. All right. Starting with the NFC. The highest in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers, 11 and a half wins. Immediately, I want to stop there. I think that's too high.
Really?
Dude, we don't know who their quarterback is.
I think they've proven year in and year out it doesn't matter in the regular season. Obviously, there's a limitation to it come playoff time, but resume's there. Kyle Shanahan crafts an offense where as long as you know how to throw the ball, the intermediate part of the field, just hit your player. His opening's there. The playmakers are there. Offensive line, Shanahan schemes it up. Like, I just think you have to be really bad not to be efficient. Dude, he got career years out of Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan's offense is about as bulletproof as it gets when it comes to quarterback play.
You just need to be healthy and not play fullback or running back in order to orchestrate this offense.
Pretty much. Like, I would love to see Josh Johnson, or was it Josh Johnson?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I love to see Josh Johnson in there for 8 games and see what numbers he puts up. Because it's just, and like, look at the supporting cast. I spoke about it ad nauseum. That is a terrifying trio. And they're in an offense where they get yak opportunities. And there isn't a player more terrifying when it comes to yak than Debo Samuel. We've seen how much Ayuk has evolved. George Kittle could turn a 8-yard out route into a 40-yard gain. So,
McCaffrey.
and that's the biggest juggernaut of them all.
I mean,
So,
dude, I was talking about it throughout the whole season, how I think that's the best collection of weapons I think I've seen in a very long time in the
Agreed.
NFL. Like top to bottom. You have the tight end, you have the receivers, you have the versatile running backs. Let's not forget, like Elijah Mitchell is a guy that gets like 20 carries, and then they also use Christian McCaffrey out the backfield. But 11 and a half is kind of wait and see for me because also with the win totals, it's very important to monitor that unless a quarterback gets hurt, probably not gonna change much. Like, even if, like, your number 1 wide receiver goes down for a significant amount of time, it's not really gonna change a lot of things. It's mostly the quarterback, and one of the stories that I always go back to that let me know that Andrew Luck was healthy was when I saw the win total, his last full season as a starter. Remember the reports going into that offseason, Allen? It was his shoulder. He hasn't thrown a football yet. He can't even grip a football. He's at the camps with the kids, and he's throwing like a Nerf ball because he can't get the Duke
Yeah.
football going. And 2 weeks before the season started, their win total went from 7.5 to 9. And I was like, he's healthy. Because that's also something where you can have a little bit of insider information. Media, beat writers that cover the Colts, they probably were looking at it like, oh, yo, he's slinging right now. And then the sports books reacted right away and they changed the win total. So when it's something drastic like that, that's when you see a change.
I got two counter arguments. One, we know how soft the NFC is. There are maybe two true contenders,
Good
and
point.
I like Dallas, but there's going to be major trepidation with Dallas just because we've seen Dallas the past few years, and it's just the colossal letdown when they get eliminated. Just like, oh, enough. But you can't deny Dallas. Their roster is tremendous, but I think that and they have quarterback depth. I look, Yorkers are going to be like shaking their head, but Sam Darnold had it when he played in Carolina last year. Put together a couple decent games. So between Lance, Purdy, and Darnold, they're ready. Like they could maintain. Like I don't know if they go win a Super Bowl. I keep hoping, but it seems clearly this they get to a point where it's quarterback play is just not there. But regular season wise, no, I think I would smash the over.
Wow. Okay. I don't agree. The over is plus 110. So that is a proposition that I think a lot of people will see and might want to bet the plus number. I think the division is kind of mediocre. The Seahawks are going to be interesting for sure, but
I think Cardinals could be the worst team in the league.
yeah, yeah, they might be, especially with Murray probably going to be out until like October, mid October, end of October. All right, so the Niners, that one was the one where it's like a wait and see for me. Then you got the Eagles at 10.5. Then every other NFC team, those are the two highest. You have 11.5 for the Niners, you have 10.5 for the Eagles, and then you got Saints at 9.5,
Wow.
Lions, Cowboys 9.5. Then you have my New York Giants 8.5 with the Seahawks and the Vikings. Then you have the Bears, Falcons, Commanders, Rams, Carolina Panthers, Green Bay Packers, all at 7.5. You got the Bucks at 6.5, which is in the last 20 years, no team has had a shift in their win total higher than the Bucks. Last year they were at 11.5. This year they're at 6.5. Obviously, because Brady's gone. I don't know who their quarterback is.
Al Trask.
Baker? Ugh, exactly. Right. So like that's a massive, massive switch. Minus 110 either direction. And then you have the Arizona Cardinals that you mentioned might be one of the worst teams in the league at 5.5. That's your NFC. Is there any team that jumps out to you that's a little head scratching of a win total? Because I have one and I'm already ready to go and bet this one because I'm overly confident.
Look, I know the playoff performances are largely disappointing, but Cowboys, they're by default the third best team in the NFC. So I'm surprised they're that low. Like, I think Gilmore and Cooks are two huge additions, even though maybe have kind of peaked, but they're still useful in their roles, and they're not the true number ones. They're a complementary piece to Lamb and Diggs. So to get those two players in, still have Dan Quinn. The only major question you have with Dallas is, yes, of course, at this point you have to question Dak Prescott given his inconsistency, but Mike McCarthy is a play caller. It does worry the hell out of me.
Let me do something that I rarely do, and let me defend the Cowboys.
Uh-huh.
The issues with them is not the regular season.
Yeah.
They've had a top 5 offense the last 3 years in the league. He puts up big numbers in the regular season. The issue with Dallas is not September to first week of January. It's middle of January and February where they vanish and they disappear. So Dak in the regular season, I like him. I think he's a top 10 quarterback without question. He might be the best quarterback in the NFC. It's like him and Jalen Hurts, same division. Of course, I got to play them 4 times a year with the Giants. But to me, it's never been an issue with Dallas in the regular season. I went like 6-1 betting on the Cowboys last year. It was not a I'm anti Dallas come January and February because that's all they've shown me my entire life, and that's all they continue to show me. Yeah, I was wrong about them doing the first round bounce to Tampa Bay, and
Yes, you were.
I lost a lot of money to them losing to beating Tampa Bay, but then I won it back when they played the Niners because I just knew that that was going to happen, and he had an awful performance in that game. So again, the Cowboy issues have nothing to do with Dak in the regular season. It comes playoff time, and it could be also Mike McCarthy, for sure. I wouldn't put it past you. And one of the decisions that I didn't like this offseason, which I loved for the team that got him, obviously being a Justin Herbert stan, is Kellen Moore leaving. Kellen Moore leaving, I think, was really, really questionable because he's led this offense to be a top 5 offense the last couple of years.
You can't deny. Yeah, it just seemed like there needed to be a split. There was a divide there, and this time's come where I feel like just calling plays rather than implementing a strategy to win. Like, and I know it sounds harsh, but I'm not the biggest believer in Kellen Moore, and I could see why they wanted to split. I just think they should have got someone that significantly better. Like Mike McCarthy to me is just not the answer. We've seen it time and time again, and I have a hard time believing he's learned from his past mistakes because he just seems someone that's kind of outdated. But Kellen Moore has a good resume, but I'm not at that level with you.
Okay, that's
But
fair.
but regular season wise, why do
But
you?
would you agree with that, though, that the issues with Dallas is not the regular season?
Oh,
It's
absolutely. Yeah, I'm
okay.
like to me, they're to me they're a contender. I just don't know at what level. Like
Mm,
just their roster is just so good, and I always will say that. And to keep Dan Quinn is a huge to have that defense that consistently forces turnovers. So that's why I'm just baffled at why their win total is still that low. To me, they should be right up there with. I think Philly, by the way, is still low. Like this team was dominant. Like 10.5, really?
Okay, no, to push back on Philly. Amazing record in one-score games, something I always harp on. They lost both of their coordinators. We were having a conversation yesterday. We were talking about football as we were getting dinner, and you said how they didn't really lose anyone of substance on the defense, but besides the
Hargrave.
Hargrave who went to San Fran, which by the way, San Fran just loading up on the defensive line again,
Yeah.
just continuing to just get these guys to just produce at a high level. But you know, Philly's gonna have, I believe they have multiple first round picks.
Yep, that Chris Olave trade.
Yeah.
Came in handy.
So they're going to be able to reload, but now they're going to play a first place schedule, which they didn't last year. Their record in one-score game. I think there's going to be some regression. So to me, I think it's a fair number at 10.5. I'd probably still lean the over. Look, it's minus 160 to the over. So they're telling you that it's a lot of pros have moved that number because all these win totals open at minus 110 either way, and then the markets send it in whatever direction that it's going. So, and again, this is a professional bettor's bet, win totals. So to see minus 160 for the Eagles, they're expecting Philly to surpass the 10.5 wins.
First place schedule with the Bucks and Vikings. To be that's
Very,
very
fair.
favorable. So
Yeah.
I think just being NFC, like if you're ultra talented NFC, like a San Fran, like a Philly, like a Dallas, like I think they're just gonna run through the NFC because it's just such a imbalanced conference, and there's so many flawed teams that we talk about the dominance with the quarterbacks in the AFC. The NFC, it's in shambles right now. Like it is, it's a conference. Yeah, it's kind of like the land of opportunity for some teams, but oh man, like if you look at a team like Philly, San Fran, like to me, they should just stack up wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Minnesota, you mentioned about being a first place schedule. They have a win total at 8.5. And that is probably my favorite bet right now when it comes to win totals to the under. 11-0 in one-score games. And I know, I know I talk about this all the time, but it's very, very important. You go back as long as you want. Any team that has an amazing record in a one-score game 1 year, the next year there's regression. It's just the nature of football. That pass interference that didn't get called for you last year is going to get called for you this year, and maybe it takes away a possession, maybe it takes away points. The holding in the end zone that happened with the New York Giants and Washington. Remember the Sunday night football
Yeah,
game where the dude got violated in the red zone, and I'm expecting a flag to come in. No flag comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, they didn't throw a flag. I couldn't believe it was a fourth down. Maybe next year that play gets called, and it's first and goal for Washington on the 1 yard line. We don't know how that game plays out. The Giants end up winning that game. Next year, they probably lose it. So these are very important things. And the three things I look at when it comes to handicapping win totals: strength of schedule. I know you brought up a good caveat where, first place schedule versus last place schedule. Last year, the Jaguars benefited from that. They played a last place schedule. No team had a bigger improvement from 1 year to another as far as like the amount of wins that they had. They have 2 wins the year before? They had the number 1 pick. So how many wins did they have? And then they end up winning the division. They win a playoff game. Epic collapse for the Chargers, but they still did that. So it's strength of schedule, turnover differential. It's another one. It's very similar to record and one-score games, unless you have another thing we were talking about yesterday, unless you have a defense that's like iconic, like the 2000 Ravens, like that core, the Legion of Boom. Like the Legion of Boom throughout their tenure, they were at the top of the turnover differential, but they had an iconic defense. Dallas last year, I misread that situation where I thought that they led the league in turnover margin, and last year they had a good number also. But you have Parsons, you have Diggs, you have Dan Quinn coming back a second time last year. So there are a couple of things that kind of make these things a little bit misleading, but it's strength of schedule, turnover differential, and one-score games. Those are the three things I look at when I'm handicapping win totals. And I go back to Minnesota. Man, they won all their games close. And then in the playoffs, they lose a game by 1 score. And I think that they're going to regress greatly. And that division got a lot better, too. You don't think so?
No.
Oh, you don't think Chicago is better than they were last year? You don't think Detroit's better than they were last year?
Oh, Detroit. Yeah. And let's not forget Detroit has a top 6 pick.
Yeah.
That trade. Chicago, they have money, but I don't think they spent it all that wisely. They should be better, but I don't view Chicago as a team that's going to win 8 games. They're still very much rebuilding. I still think Green Bay could be respectable. I think people are forgetting about Green Bay. Green Bay still has a relatively good roster. It's just kind of flawed. But you know what's working against the Vikings? They can't go up against Jeff Saturday again. You don't get the reference?
No, why?
38-3.
Oh, yeah, the comeback. Yeah.
Those one-score games, you're not going to have Jeff Saturday calling plays or whatever he was doing in Indianapolis. So it's just stuff like that. I think the Vikings, wow, they got away with a lot that past season for a team that I think now they're trying to get younger, but which they need to. But getting younger doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get better. Like they got rid of Eric Kendricks, got rid of Van Thielen. Guys are getting kind of long in the tooth. But who knows if that's going to lead. It's just, I think Brian Flores should be a cool hire. I'm excited they brought him in, but it's just with the Vikings, still seem flawed. And you said you cannot replicate what they had with those one-score games.
Literally the best season ever in one-score games.
Like
it's not going to happen again.
Greg Joseph won't hit what did he hit, like a 62-yarder against the Giants?
Yeah.
So it's just certain games that were just like, no. But then you see games against Dallas, Green Bay, where it's over by the third quarter, and it's just like, yeah, this team is still.
Dude, even the Colts game, it was over by the third quarter.
Oh, it was over.
It was over, and then they came back. Yeah, another thing that's never going to biggest comeback in NFL history. I'm off Minnesota, and I was someone that was very high on Minnesota last year. Remember, I told you my conference championship game was going to be Minnesota and Philly. I got one of them right, but I was very high on both of those teams. And Philly, I'm still high on. I think that they're going to surpass their win total. Minnesota, I'm completely off the bandwagon. And I don't know, bro. There's something about Chicago. Maybe I'm fantasizing about Justin Fields running the ball and doing all the craziness he was doing last year. But I love DJ Moore going there, man.
Me too.
And you know, it's one of my biggest things. If you have a young quarterback, you got to get him an alpha wide receiver, and I think he is. I think he's a great wide receiver. He's being paid like a top wide receiver. And, yeah, his production isn't as great as you want it to be, but it's also look at what he had to deal with in Carolina. And especially after they got McCaffrey, it was all focused on him. I think he's going to open up a lot of shit for Justin Fields in Chicago, and I think he's going to be a great addition. I think Chicago's going to be someone you'll be hearing a lot on the pod for sure.
You want to mention one more team?
Yeah, good. Oh, can I also mention the Giants?
Yeah.
Because people hearing this, they're gonna be like, "Yo, bro, the Giants had a great. The Giants were like 8-2 in one-score games." Absolutely, that's something that I'm worried about. They overachieved last year. Now, the thing that happens with the Giants is they're gonna benefit from not playing a first place schedule. They're playing a third place schedule. They came in third in the division. And the conference, again, like when we're talking about NFC teams, a lot of the things we're saying aren't going to apply to the NFC teams like they will when we get to the AFC portion of the show because the AFC is loaded. So when you're playing a third place schedule in the AFC, you're probably running into a good ass team.
Jets,
Running into the Jets with how they've revamped. You're running into
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, who we'll get to Pittsburgh in just a sec. So that's why it's not always applicable one thing to the other. But what was the team you wanted to mention?
Can't believe it, but I'm getting slowly appealed by the Falcons.
Let's
I think the Falcons are
go.
building something. I know the quarterback situation's a little murky. No one knows what to quite expect from Desmond Ridder, but I think they utilized their cap space very well. They finally got out of cap hell after several bad contracts. They went all in and crashed rather badly. But now, Jesse Bates, Don Yamada, Calais Campbell, I think was a hell of a sign. I know he's 36, but getting someone like Calais Campbell that could be a veteran presence who's still playing at a relatively high level. Atlanta just needs talent in the trenches. So now they're imposing, and I do think Arthur Smith's one of the better play callers in the league. What he's done with that running game, they were pounding teams into submission, and they did also lose a lot of one-score games, which we mentioned before. So between that, healthy Kyle Pitts, better quarterback situation, because Ritter is absolutely an upgrade over Mariota. There's no doubt about it. And that division is if anyone's there for the taking. So I think the Falcons, it wouldn't surprise me if they won 9 games. I'm not saying their roster is necessarily good enough to win 9 games, but I think the upside's there and the coaching's there. And they also have a top 10 pick again. And I think they've spent very wisely in free agency. So it wouldn't shock me if Falcons go 9-8 and very well could win the NFC South. I think in the NFC South, anyone could win it except Tampa Bay. I'm totally off Tampa Bay, but I like where the Panthers are headed, even though they need some receivers. But between them, New Orleans, and Atlanta, it's gonna be a 3-team race.
Isn't it crazy that this time last year we were saying that no team is going to win the NFC South except for
Yeah,
Tampa? And now it's like they're the only team we can't see winning it. It's so wild,
it's
bro.
just an old roster, and uh, we'll see what happens. But man, I don't think Todd Bowles could be a head coach. I was really let down by Todd Bowles last year,
Mm.
and maybe the offensive play calling will be better because Byron Leftwich was a total disaster. But it's just between bad coaching, likely horrific quarterback play, roster getting older, secondary not being that good. It's not a lot to be excited about with Tampa Bay. And I do wonder what could happen to like a Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Could one of them be traded?
Could be. They're getting some big money too, and they're in a rebuild. So I think that that's definitely in play. I want to switch over to the AFC side. There's only 3 teams in the NFL that have a win total of 11.5. It's the highest in the league. 2 of the 3 teams are in the AFC. We mentioned one of them in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. The Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champs, they're at 11.5, and the Bengals are at 11.5. Both are minus 110 in either direction, and both, I think, Allen, are the once again are the favorites in the AFC, rightfully so. And I think that both of them are on a collision course once again. Because
Yes.
all we've seen is, back to back years, AFC title game, it's been them two. And dude, until proven otherwise, we just pencil in Mahomes and the Chiefs. As long as he's healthy, they're in the AFC title game. And last 2 seasons, we've seen Burrow and the Bengals in there. And I asked you this question yesterday, and you didn't feel this way, but I think this is their last chance to win a Super Bowl, Cincinnati, that is, with this core that they have. Because Burrow's still on a rookie contract. T. Higgins is still on a rookie contract. Jamar Chase is on a rookie contract. And you're looking at $50 million for Burrow a year, Chase north of 30, and then T. Higgins is going to be what, 20? He might even get 25 if he goes to a different team. So you're looking at like $100 million per year for these 3 guys. And then you're going to lose your running backs. You're going to lose
I mean,
Hendrickson.
they're feeling the effects already. They already lost both their starting safeties. Jesse Bates, Von Bell played 98% of their snaps. That's significant, especially for a Lou Anarumo defense. So they're already feeling it.
That's your boy, Lou.
I mean, we know how great he is. Staten Island, not quite at a level of a certain hip hop group, but he's up there.
Staten Island's finest, but he ain't messing with the Wu-Tang, that's for sure. I think both of these are apropos. I think both of these should be at 11.5. And then you have this one's a shock. When's the last time you saw the Jaguars at 10.5 wins?
The opportunity's there.
Dude, Jacksonville Jaguars 35-1 to win the Super Bowl. We're gonna make it rain a little bit on that. I love it. I think that division sucks. Both South divisions suck. We were talking about it last year when we gave them out at 9-1 to win the division. How the only logical way they can make the playoffs was to win the division. Don't bet them to make the playoffs because the AFC was so stacked, and they make the playoffs. You're never gonna see anything. You're probably not gonna see a plus number near the Jaguars to win the division north of like plus 150 ever again, as long as Trevor Lawrence is there. And especially now with, I love what they did with Ridley coming in. It was like a shady move that they did last year. Like they just got Calvin Ridley and everyone was like, oh, he's not going to play this year. But he's like, yeah, but he's going to come back. And he's a premier wide receiver. And the way that whole offense is going to be able to operate now, like Evan Ingram, can't believe I'm saying that. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, Etienne out the backfield, bro. We were talking about that on another episode, but I like Jacksonville, and also to stay with the 10.5, it's Buffalo as well.
Yeah.
You agree with those?
Yeah, all of them. I know Buffalo's looking very vulnerable, but they're still a heavyweight to me. They still have enough premier talent.
A team whose window is
It's still there, but like I'm still taking them in the AFC East, and I really like what Miami's done. Even though Miami is very much they're banking on some injury prone, slowly decline players, but I still think their talent's enough where they're a threat. Like to me, Miami, depending on what happens to Rodgers, like Miami to me is the fourth best team in the AFC. Yeah. Like I would actually put Miami over Jacksonville. Still, that's how well they built their roster. I just getting someone like Ramsey. I know Ramsey's come off a down year, but I think him with Vic Fangio, who to me is the biggest coordinator hire of the offseason, getting someone like Vic Fangio who consistently puts out top 10 defenses, and now he gets to work with just alpha male secondary. I know Xavier Howard's come off a down year and Ramsey as well, but look, these two together with Javon Holland, they're going to be bullying.
Hey, bro, let's not. We've talked about this shit so many times where there are certain guys that are elite coordinators. Don't look at what happened with Vic Fangio when he became a head coach and think bad about the guy. He is an amazing coordinator, and there are a lot of dudes like Nathaniel Hackett, great coordinator, couldn't cut it as a head coach.
We'll see.
Why?
You don't think it's a lot with Rodgers? I don't know many people that speak highly of Nathaniel Hackett. I'll just say that.
I mean, bro, yeah, Rodgers definitely helped, but like Rodgers was also not on the decline, but Rodgers didn't have. He pulled 2 MVP seasons out of his hat.
I'm intrigued what he could do in New York.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah, jury's very much out because I think Nathaniel Hackett completely crashed in Denver. Well, I think Vic Fangio at least held it a respectable unit in Denver. He was, not quite obviously at a playoff level, but they were competing to beat Denver. They've had some embarrassing performances. So time will tell what Hackett, but yeah, I think that's huge. Christian Wilkins quietly one of the best interior tackles. I think he's going to become an established star this year. David Long, if he could stay healthy, like Miami, got players and they got people that just take over games. And we know how dynamic the offense is. It's just, there's going to be times who going to be healthy. Ron Armstead, who as elite as he is at left tackle, he plays about 11 games a year. So you're going to feel that. Tyreek Hill, even though I don't think he missed a game, but there were times where he got banged up. So these are the concerns. But I just think when you look at a team as talented as Miami and how well coached they're going to be, they're a threat. I think they could win a playoff game or two. It wouldn't surprise me if they really took it to a team, even like a Cincinnati, took them to the brink.
The Jets, Dolphins, Browns, Chargers are all at 9.5 wins.
Wow, Cleveland.
Yeah. Look, you're going to have Watson for a whole season. He'll be able to practice. He'll be able to play. I think that's being heavily influenced into the number. This was another team whose win total was wacky last year because it opened up so high, and then it had like a 2-game movement. That was also something that told me that Watson's probably going to get suspended more than what the early projections were, like 4 or 6 games. Like, nah, dude, when they moved it that much, they were expecting him to miss the amount of games that he did miss. I think they're very interesting. Another tough-ass division, dude. Like, there's no easy out in that division at all.
I think they come in last place again as of now.
Yeah?
I'm not enthused. I didn't think they have a great offseason. Yes, Elijah Moore was a good trade, but maybe Dalvin Thompson, they need someone at defensive tackle because every team that played against Cleveland last year ran for like 130 yards. Like
OD.
it was clear lanes every game against them. So at least Tomlinson could be a decent addition. But I'm not really into Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator. I think he's very outdated. Like it's just, I think Stefanski's coaching for his job. I think Stefanski's a very good play caller, but there are serious questions by him as a coach at this point. So I don't know. I'm not convinced by Cleveland at all. I find that total to be a bit inflated.
Denver 8.5, Pittsburgh 8.5, Baltimore 8.5, and then you have the Patriots, Raiders, and Titans at 7.5, and then the Colts at 6.5, and then the Texans, along with the Cardinals, as the worst projected teams at 5.5 wins.
Why don't you talk about your Broncos?
Bro, Denver is.
Let the people know.
Denver has already been wagered on to win the Super Bowl at 50-1. I've already put money on that. I love that number. I think it's a mistake. I think that unless, and I'll always harp on this, and it's not a hedge. This is just like an actual assessment of the Broncos. Unless Russell Wilson is completely fried, which could be the case, you think it's the case, that's a terrible call on my end. But I'm betting on Sean Payton, and I'm betting on the defense. That defense is the best defense in the league because when you factor in how bad that offense was and how often they were on the field and how many 3-and-outs and short fields that they had to work with, that is the best defense in the league. It's easy for you to say San Fran has the best defense in the league when they have a competent offense, a very explosive offense with Purdy also. Like they were dropping like 30 burgers every week. But with Denver, I think that everyone is so off Denver.
Dude, they got torched by Baker Mayfield and the Rams on Christmas. You can't be the best defense in the league when stuff like that is happening. I'm not even sure if Denver's top 5. They're up there. Look, they're a good, respectable unit, one of the best corners in third 10. But that Randy Gregory signing crashed. I don't know how that's going to be. And they just spent a lot of money on Zach Allen. Like, Vance Joseph being back. By the way, how about that as a storyline? Former coach now back as a D coordinator. That's pretty wonky to me. Yeah, I don't see it with Denver at all. I look, Sean Payton, Hall of Fame caliber coach, no doubt about it, but I think the defense is a little. I think they're more reputation than substance.
Bro, Russ had 4 interceptions in that game. Like, yeah,
they got lit up though, man. I know Russ. Look, and I do think Russ is fried as well. Like, it's like Javonte Williams, Patrick Surtain Jr. I guess the receivers are staying. They're not training the receivers apparently, which I feel like they have so much talent receiver, but they don't know how to utilize it. Hopefully Sean Payton knows.
Yeah.
Because they got talent. But they're just so flawed. Like, what really gets you excited besides Sean Payton? Like, I didn't think their free agency moves were great at all. I think McGlinchey's going to be a disaster. He can't pass block. He's injury prone. Like, and they had cap space too. Like, I don't see it at all.
I don't know, man. I think like teams have bad performances, and when Russ comes out and throws 3 interceptions in like the first quarter, it's gonna make your defense look shitty. Look, San Francisco's defense got lit up in the playoff game too, and a lot of that was because like the quarterback got hurt, and it was just a nightmare. And you don't know what, you also don't know what team morale is. Like if you want to get deep, it's like
Hackett got fired a day later.
Yeah, like
it's not just one game though. They were respectably good, but just. The best though, like better than San Fran, better than Dallas. I don't think you could say that. I think they were up there like with the Jets. The Jets were in a similar situation with how bad their quarterback situation was, turning the ball over and being put on the field to play 70, 80 snaps a game. NFL's a lot, but like when you look at the snaps or like the time possession, when a defense is on the field for more than 65 snaps, bad things are bound to happen because just through pure exhaustion, they don't have the depth.
Let me give you a good one. Ready for this one? Why I'm also pro Denver. Over the past decade, there have been 33 losing seasons that teams have had 7 losses that were less than 1 score. The following season, those teams have seen a 79% improvement in the win column. Last year, the Denver Broncos, 8 of their 10 losses were by 1 score or less.
Yeah, because they couldn't score more than 19 points, I think.
They couldn't, yeah. And it was that one like Thursday night game when it was them and the Niners. It was like whoever has the ball last is going to be the reason why they lose.
Colts.
No. It was a Niners Broncos game.
That was a Sunday night game.
All right, it was Sunday night game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a primetime game.
But
that
one
was
Thursday
like
night game. The Colts was.
Yeah, that one was bad
Al
too.
Michaels considered retirement on air that night.
Yeah, because he definitely took the points. That's why the way Al Michaels is the king of being like, oh, well, that helps some people. That touchdown matters to a couple people. Like he's my favorite commentator, bro, because he's one of us. He's a DGen. He always knows the lines. He knows the props. He knows all that. But yo, I think Denver is gonna see a massive improvement there. So we'll see. Look, we have a lot of time to break all this stuff down. It was cool to talk some NFL with the win totals. I want to end this with talking a little bit about what are your thoughts about Vegas, bro?
What a city. Just it's like bangers on bangers. Like you just see one palace here, a casino here, because you see a Mandalay Bay, you see MG Grand, especially being a fight fan. You see Caesar Palace if you watch The Hangover and other movies, and just seeing it like back to back, especially on a weekend like this with March Madness going on, and we were watching WrestleMania. It's just such a big weekend as well. The streets are packed. Got concerts happening in multiple areas. Chili Peppers were performing where the Raiders Stadium is. Like, it's just such a huge weekend, and just seeing people out. It's lively. Like, if you want to go to Vegas and you're not necessarily into gambling, it's just you see such a vibrant environment. Like, you feel that energy. That's something that I've taken in the most so far.
Yeah, it's dope. It's dope. The traffic was crazy with the Chili Peppers. We definitely hit some traffic over there by the stadium. But yeah, it's been sick, man. March Madness has been wild. This is my first experience in Vegas for March Madness. And yesterday we went over to the sports book at Circa and we were watching the games there. And longest bar in the world was it? Was
Yeah,
it? That shit
it
was
was a
crazy.
stretch, and I want to run just to test my speed. Like it's like double the 40 time. Like do like a Rich Eisen, but oof, that's wow. And then UConn just so dominant in a year where UConn women aren't at the top. Caitlin Clark doing her thing for Iowa, the men for UConn winning games by more than 20 points, pretty much. They're on an upward trajectory, but San Diego State winning. The Cinderella story continues. It's gonna be a fascinating final because given that San Diego State has the size, but UConn they got bullies down low. So in a year where there's been so many upsets, I do think we have a compelling final in our hands. But it wouldn't surprise me if you got on my case yesterday because I thought it was gonna be defensive slugfest, and then they were hitting threes like
Oh my
70%.
God,
I
dude.
think Monday night you could quote me on this. We will see a true defensive 60-55 slugfest.
I always like to say that there's a difference between betting and gambling. I gambled yesterday
Yeah.
because Alan was like, yo, this San Diego State, they keep teams to under 17 points a game of what their
Scoring averages,
scoring average is, and then
34% from the field.
this guy just comes out and goes like 4 for 4 from three. Bradley was his name from San Diego State, I
No,
think.
but Florida Atlantic was the team that was shooting. Like they were like 8 for 14 from downtown start.
Well, they were just making it
Yeah,
rain, and it
but
was like I'm looking at the app and I'm punting away money. I'm like, this is why I only bet on things that I know.
yeah,
And I made Alan pay for dinner because we had to recover. We had to recover financially
I
after
mean,
that one. And then I bet on Thiago Santos in the PFL because we were over there. And
that's another thing going on this weekend.
yeah,
What's the
PFL was
PFL?
here in Vegas, and I bet on Thiago Santos. I was like, yeah, he's a former UFC guy. And then they flashed the graphic. He's 39. I was like, oh my god, he definitely looked 39 years old being out there in the octagon. So yeah, yesterday I did some gambling. It was fun though. It was fun. That's the nature of the beast. But it's why I took the over in the UConn game, and then that one was a defensive battle. It was the big blowout too.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it was just more of UConn just too good. Like Miami had their spurts, but UConn's size, their defense is just too much. And then at one point, Miami, one of their key players had a lost shoe, and they couldn't replace the shoe. I'm like, it's a Final Four. You have an equipment manager. He's like, he's wearing the tightest pants, and he has like, if you're an equipment manager, how are you not wearing sweats? I know it's the Final Four. You want to look good, but there might be a particular situation where they need you, and you're supposed to be working in jeans, running, and we know it's in a huge stadium in Houston. You gotta be more prepared, Miami. Come on, the U. Like this is what the U we're talking about.
Yeah.
I could see maybe Florida Atlantic because another thing we are talking about the under in those games, like Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, they're playing in front of small crowds. They're not from big conferences.
Where now
But
you were in front of 60,000 people.
yeah, and credit to them. First half they were shooting. Second half it kind of went back to the median, but first half, wow, both teams shooting over 50% from downtown. Unreal. It's been a hell of a tournament. I think even though people are kind of like, we missed the blue bloods and the heavyweights, and it's all our brackets are busted. It's still cool to see how it creates belief for these mid majors and these smaller programs. Like, wow, we could be that team. And you've always had that belief after seeing a team like a George Mason or a VCU, but see multiple teams now. It's just wow. Okay,
Well,
doesn't matter if we're in a smaller conference. We could achieve anything.
well, I mean, bro, isn't that the epitome of what March Madness stands for?
Yeah, but it doesn't always happen. Like you have uh, George Mason, then nothing happens for like 10, 15 years, and you
Yeah.
forget about it. Now see, 'cause I do consider. I know San Diego State was a 5 seed, but man, they were picked by a lot of people to lose to Charleston in the first round. Like they were
Mm.
not considered a 5 seed that was going to be a threat.
Oh, you were talking about that with Duke, not Duke, with Miami. How a
Yeah,
lot of people had Drake beating
yeah,
them.
and then they played Indiana, and Indiana's a potential lottery pick in Tracy Jackson Davis. So it's just the 5-12 is always one of the biggest upset picks,
Yeah,
and
it's super popular.
San
I even know about that one
yeah,
too.
it's San Diego State and Miami both made the Final Four as they were trendy teams to lose in the first round. So I just think it's cool to see that belief, and that's just part of the madness, and that's why people love the sport come March because we know college basketball is just not the same popularity wise anymore, especially with more legendary coaches retiring, like your Coach K's, Roy Williams, Jim Boeheim, Jay Wright.
But do you also think because of the one and done, that's why that happens?
It could be that because of losing talent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're not really invested in the players as much. I used to be able to see dudes there for 4 seasons.
Mhm. But now, hopefully, with the NIL, maybe they'll stay longer.
Mm,
Hopefully, maybe it's an incentive.
maybe like your fringe first round picks might, but if you're a lottery
Yeah.
pick, you're projected like Zion was gonna go out anyway. Like even if he was gonna get the NIL money, I think guys like that, like the upper echelon of talent, I think they're gonna leave anyway. But yeah, maybe your potential, eighth guy off the bench in the NBA, he might stick around if you're making. Dude, I've seen some of these dudes like Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, brings in like close to $3 million off the NIL deal. It's nuts. Like that's different. Well, also with football, it's also completely different
Yeah.
because you got to stay at least 3 years from when you graduated high school. That's like the bare minimum. But in the NBA, I think the NIL deal keep it'll keep away those fringe players that are going to be let down by where they get drafted. They'll come back to school, but the upper echelon, I think they'll still go.
Speaking of NBA, excited about your Knicks?
Yeah, man, the Knicks have been really fun this year, and you actually were at the Garden before you got here.
Yeah, I was at Knicks Heat, which old school rivalry game where Knicks need to win to make sure they didn't fall into that play-in spot, and
Yeah,
they delivered, man. Manuel quickly, just give him the six man right now. What a talent,
bro, how crazy does the Garden get when he goes off?
ooh, everyone gets out of their seat. Like,
Bro, I've been talking about this all the time. Like, he's the one guy on the Knicks that for some reason when he goes crazy, the crowd erupts. Like the aura of the Garden it's a louder roar when he does something outrageous, when he has those like 10 points in 4 minute stretches. And then also there's no team that the fans want to be good more than Knicks fans.
right, like New York City just gets taken over by blue and orange when they're good.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
good. They're good this year, and they're probably on a collision course to play the Cavs. And I was telling you how I feel like both teams are probably happy with that matchup as opposed to playing anyone else in that first round. So both teams probably feel good about that. But when it comes to the Knicks, dude, I think that it sucks that Randall went down with that ankle injury because ankles are always you'll be back in 2 weeks, but then
It
how
looked
much
bad
of that
live. It
how
did
much
look bad.
yeah, how much of that is gonna linger. But it was cool to get your perspective of it because you're not a Knicks fan but you got to go to the Garden, and like the Garden it's an attraction, man.
Oh yeah, you still get those goosebumps because there's just so many iconic moments there, and you know when teams are good, it's going to show out. There's going to be a sellout. It was Hispanic Heritage Night. Jay Balvin
Oh,
was in the front row, and then the other one, like Chris Rock was there, and it's the first time I've ever seen Chris Rock be put on camera and did not smile. He had such a stern look. Look, Will Smith probably that situation changed him, but it was
slapped a
just
smile out of his face.
yeah. I don't know. He lost his smile, but he was there. There's a couple other celebrities. You just felt the rush and be on the lookout for the Knicks, man. And they got depth too. That's another thing. Like I
They
love me
do.
some Quentin Grimes. I thought he was just a 3-and-D guy. No, Quentin Grimes is a playmaker. He has some moments where you're just like, wow, you can actually depend on him to create his own shot and make the players around him better. So he's another one because we know about Brunson and Randall, but guys like Grimes, we know how good Quickly is. You know, Robinson contribute here and there. I love, we love the Josh Hart trade. He's just born to be in New York. It's
For
I don't
sure.
know how he's not been in New York yet, but he's just a perfect complementary piece, and you need that to compete in the East. So I'm very fascinated to see what the Knicks do. It's they're way better than I know. 2 years ago there was a rush bound, but this roster is significantly better than the one from 2 years ago.
Yeah, without question. And everyone has matured. Those guys are older. Those guys now have played in front of New York for a long time. And Thibodeau has been a roller coaster for Thibodeau. It's been
Yeah.
very up and down with the Knicks fan base. And he's good until he's not.
Mhm.
Like he's the kind of coach you want for a young team for like a year or two. Then after that, it becomes very weird some of the decisions that he makes. But he's turned it around too. And having a point guard like Brunson has been he might be it's like him and Aaron Judge might be the kings of New York, dude. Like as far as like the athletes in New York that have the most pull amongst the fans.
Saquon.
Mm,
Oh,
I don't think so. Not like that, not anymore. It's not
I'll take your word for it.
yeah, because Saquon now he got franchised. I'm expecting him to hold out because that's what all running backs do when they get franchise tagged. And
As we say this in Vegas, where I've seen at least 4 Josh Jacobs jerseys here.
yeah,
Yeah, by far. Like I thought I might have seen some Devontae Adams or Max Crosby jerseys. No, everyone loves them. Some Josh Jacobs.
yeah. No,
Or
he's been a
organizations show it.
yeah. Well, that's the nature of that position, man, the running back position. But dude, it was good to have you in the studio, man.
Absolutely, man. Like we talked about, a long time coming, and see how everything just continuously progressed. But now just seeing on the big time, like having the screen here, seeing people walking by as someone is taking a picture of us.
Yeah,
It's big time, and this is where you want to be. You want to have your own studio. You want to see the branding. You want to have your face there, and just the years of sacrifice and seeing you here. Brings like a tear to my eye, man.
let's go. With a
Beautiful.
tear in my eye. Hey, Alan and I have recorded a bunch of content. If you go to the Patreon, it'll be up. One of the episodes, well, next week's episode is going to be up on the Patreon at the time that you're listening to this one. So go and check it out. Some of the perks. I'm doing the best I can, ladies and gentlemen and legends, to give you guys as much incentive to go to the Patreon and give back to you guys. Get access to the Discord on there also. And we got a nice UFC card coming up this weekend. There'll be a UFC preview with special guests once again this week. So at Veterans Minimum is where you can find all things VM. At Nick Day is 10 is where you can find me. Alan, where can they find you?
Alan Stirk, ALLEN STRK.
And we will catch you guys next time on VM.